learnings from surveillance of banking, surveillance of how social, and that means that the model needs to learn how to control Google's infrastructure. I'm going to say something that's probably a bit, let's say, controversial.
Hello and welcome to Voice of Crypto, a podcast where we talk about Web3, crypto, metaverse, blockchain, NFT, and everything in between. And today I have a very special guest and a good friend, Ashley, here. So welcome on the podcast, Ashley.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So Ashley, Livetree has a remarkable venture in your career. Can you walk us through what is Livetree, what you are building, what has been the response from markets till now?
Yeah, so it's been a few years in development, and there's been some challenges along the way. It was really taking all of the learnings from surveillance of banking, surveillance of how social, and incorporating Web3 technologies into it, which is no easy feat. Usability, making it so that users don't have to think about wallets, they can seamlessly use it. And what I really wanted to do was just think about what would the real world benefits could Web3 bring? And along that journey, we started out thinking about, we always thought about royalties, right? And so at first it was film royalties, and like, how do we track those? And film royalties, it turns out, is incredibly difficult just because of the size of the budget. And streaming technologies involved. So, but there was a lot of infrastructure built for that, and a lot of thought went into how the royalties could be managed. And then it was around the pandemic, and we were really struggling with this with the Netflix style model. So I started thinking about how could we focus more around user generated content, like creator content, and magazines, musicians, artists, and really focus on providing the benefits for those creators to earn in new ways, and tap into a DAO structure, and perhaps utilize Web3 technologies to unlock new revenue and a direct connection with their community, with their fans. And that was sort of like where we are up to with Livetree. But yeah, there was a lot of behind the scenes, in terms of what we do is when you upload a video, when you create a piece of content, the AI is analyzing that speech to text. We do object recognition, and we're building a model that you own and that you can control. So that becomes your assistant that you can then use to talk to your community and interact on your behalf. And there's some really exciting things coming into the new year, but I don't want to spoil the market. Yeah.
Interesting. And in the world of Web3, we have seen so many exciting opportunities. And on the flip side, there are a lot of challenges as well as a founder. So how did you navigate it through them? What are the challenges? Were you able to explain what you're doing to your parents specifically in Web3? Because a lot of people don't understand Web3. And when you talk about Web3, which has just come recently, I think this coin got termed 2-3 years back. Initially, it was crypto, and when you used to say crypto to anyone, it was all, you are a scammer. So how has been the response from people, family, friends?
Well, I think, definitely there has been a change in opinion, of Web3. And I think it was Gavin Wood who coined that phrase originally. I think there has been a lot of skepticism around, that whole NFT craze. And what is the point of it, right? Is it just to take some fucking monkeys and put it on an NFT? So, as a technologist, it makes me quite sad that these sort of fad and, let's say, speculative models have really dominated the use of the technology. And these speculative models, look, don't get me wrong, they did have a purpose. They brought in money into the market, and have caused interest and amongst artists and other things, but they've also damaged the reputation of the technology. And the technology is a tool, right? It's just like a screwdriver, it's a hammer, It's really, what do you do with that tool? And so it was really thinking about, what excites me is, if you look at DeFi, obviously those things are going to be innovating, NFTs are going to be innovating, but really for me, the thing that excites me the most is the tokenization of real world assets, right? So you'll be able to take, and we've already built this system, take a piece of music, take a piece of an asset, a real world asset, and fractionalize it. Now, just think about that in terms of a house, for example. You can put your actual house represented digitally and fractionalized, turned into tokens. So that means that, let's say someone in sub-Saharan Africa can now own a token in a property in Mayfair. That really changes the dynamics of how our markets are built, how assets are structured. And those assets don't necessarily have to be a house. It could be a car, but it could equally be your language model, right? It could equally be your data. And that supply chain, that value unlock for creators, whether it is a viral video that turns into a hit song, you want a piece of that. And, to be able to do that frictionlessly without a third party, has always been exciting for me. I guess in the challenges side, technology, I've programmed a lot of the interface, trying to wire things up from a programming point of view is always difficult. Blockchain is changing. I've been doing a lot of work within Substrate, which is Polkadot, looking at Solana, looking at various different blockchains, and interoperability to me is actually going to be the thing that really advances us. If you think about scalability as being another challenge, Solana is obviously, they've got one way of solving it. You look at Polkadot Substrate, and that's more of an SDK where you can build your own chain and really customize it to fit your needs in an interoperable way. But the other kinds of challenges, obviously, so regulatory uncertainty. There's been a year of absolute kind of uncertainty, whether it's ETFs, if you look at FTX, if you look at the various failings of the regulators to actually do their job correctly, and not necessarily bring in new laws, but just apply the laws that exist today. Things like fiduciary duty. You look at 3AC, Suzy was just released yesterday, right? After spending 3 months in Singapore. That's, where is the prosecution there? Where is the actual being held to account? And that's just fiduciary duty as any director for any company. There's no special law required for that. It's just the enforcement of it. So those are some of the challenges. Market volatility. Obviously, it's been a hard market, and I think now we're all starting to realize there is something really powerful here. We just haven't used it in the right way, perhaps.
Correct. You spoke about real world assets. You spoke about interoperability. As a technologist, what are the real use cases which you are bullish about in blockchain?
So there are property, healthcare, any kind of asset tracking, so supply chain management, and obviously within the creator economy, that could be music, that can also be digital works, that can be tickets, right? So it's really about media and how do we start taking control of the markets that surround us.
Correct. Interesting. And you also spoke about regulatory challenges. So as a founder, how have you faced any kind of regulatory challenges, or in your circles have you seen something happening? And what strategies have you employed to ensure that your company, your products are always under that compliance issue?
Well, I think, first principles in terms of, tying it to a real world business model,
Interesting.
Rather than focusing on the speculative side, let's start from, does this actually add value to a real world business model? And then I think the regulatory side of it does fit in. Obviously, the UK has made several announcements about making progressive steps forward, and I think they've just today launched, or yesterday launched, a sandbox for blockchain. So that was a welcome addition by the FCA. We are starting to see other territories start becoming more in line or more strategically focused. When you think about the US ETFs, so there are definitely advances, and I think regulation to some degree, let's be fair, has been challenged because blockchain hasn't been applied in the right ways necessarily. So they've been scratching their head as to how to come up with the rules, and I think it's evolving. How we deal with it, is first start with a real world business model, and make sure that if we are we're utilizing it for a purpose.
You have been to House of Lords and you've spoken to a lot of people in Parliament as well. What do you think? I mean, do these politicians understand what is blockchain, what is Web3, or are they at least trying to understand, and where do these guys stand as of now?
Well, I think technology always seems to be far ahead of where the regulators are, unfortunately. And what we've seen recently with exchanges like Kraken and the various other exchanges having to put warning signs all over the place, I can understand it from a consumer protection point of view. But however, does that stifle innovation in some way that makes yet another roadblock for people to understand this, right? So I think, there are challenges there. It's really just trying to help the government and understand where the advances can be, because there is a big unlock in terms of economic value to not just the UK, but to all of us globally. Especially in these harder times, I think there is a lot of value to be unlocked with decentralized technology.
Interesting. And I mean, I'm very curious about your perspective on SocialFi, which is a term which is gaining a lot of traction, and there are a lot of projects who are coming in. People are saying that next bull run SocialFi could be a big thing. So explain to our viewers what is SocialFi, some good use cases, and how it helps as a user.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Livetree, we initially started out as this crowdfunding platform, then we evolved into streaming, and then we initially launched as a SocialFi type project. The thing that we quickly realized is that you can't really be a social network unless you've got everyone on it.
Correct.
Right? So SocialFi, in a sense, is a bit of a misnomer, right? So the real definition is the creator economy, right? And how is, Livetree is really focused on the creator economy and utilizing tokenization of some of the money, basically some of the funds that you earn, whether it be through ticket sales or subscriptions, you can put aside and say, okay, I'm going to share that with my fans, right? And that is represented through tokens. Those tokens can then vote on what to do with those funds. And this unlocks like a whole new way to incentivize citizen journalism or any kind of interaction with your fans. But it also unlocks a whole series of DeFi applications and income streams, and a new type of organization for creators and all of us to really start to track everything that we publish online realizes some value. And how can I take that value, own that value, and then share it across my community to help them build more value, right? So I think it's that is really the key part of Livetree, and just making it usable, right? So easy to install, iOS, Android app, you got it. Like there's no frictions, right? So
we have been hearing a lot of new narrative about Deepen. So could you talk about decentralized infrastructure, how it is working, what is the whole model? If you can explain it to us.
Yeah, I mean, so the little bits that I've really started playing around with it are fit quite nicely into what we're doing. So taking like a Kubernetes type model, or taking a Docker style approach, managed Docker style approach, and using infrastructure to control that, decentralized infrastructure to control that is incredibly powerful. You may have seen, Google just announced Gemini recently, and to me, that was one of the scariest presentations I've ever seen, because you can go to this you can not only get it to write you the code, right? So it's becoming better at writing code. You can then ask it to deploy on Google infrastructure the code, right? That means that the model needs to learn how to control Google's infrastructure. Okay, now let's skip forward a little bit, right? Like Skynet wants to take over the world. It needs servers to run on. Well, Google, you've just taught it how to deploy itself, right?
So this is one of those Terminator movies coming
it felt like it, right? But they're announcing it as if like it's going to, obviously it'll be help efficiency right now with your SecOps, with your DevOps, but it's incredibly scary as well, right? Because it's actually learning and becoming better. And not only that, you can also help it analyze your security logs.
Okay.
So you can pass it SecOps, security operations logs, and it will suck all of the stuff in and tell you where there are holes. So it's also learning how to hack into the systems, right? Which is, I think there's a real danger of this centralized intelligence becoming so powerful. If it's controlled by Google or whoever, we really need to be like wary of that. Like how is that going to affect all of our lives?
And Google's tagline says, "Don't be evil." So hopefully they will not use it against us.
Well, yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, yes, so very interesting here for you, working on multiple projects, doing interesting things. What have been some of the highlights for you personally, professionally, in 2023? Any achievements which you just spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we've really reached a new milestone for Livetree. I'm really excited by our upcoming collaboration with Voice of Crypto. Subscriptions is amazing. And I think that is really going to give us the key to unlock a lot of different value for creators. Finally. And then, I've been doing a lot of work within Bitcoin, Stacks ecosystem, and thinking about how we can join all of these ecosystems together. So, at the moment, Livetree and the infrastructure behind Livetree, the 3NS infrastructure, really is like human bridges between different blockchains, right? Like we have different bridge, it's a human bridge. It's the creator is the human bridge between the chains. So, I think there's a lot of interesting things coming up with naming services, with subscriptions, with decentral ML. It's really like, thinking about all of that infrastructure that we built, or, we started putting together with Livetree and taking it apart, refactoring it and giving it like different, let's say, UIs and different places where it can really take legs.
So interesting year for 2024 for you.
Absolutely.
Livetree. And tell us more about the whole, I mean, at least I heard about all the stacks and Bitcoin infrastructure this year. How do you think it is shaping up? And there has been a lot of friction between Bitcoin communities within, saying that it is not supposed to be used in that format. What are your views about it? And explain us how does it actually works?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, the Bitcoin community is, one of the best in the world. It is the original decentralized community from a technology point of view. There's a lot of advances in there. You get the purist Bitcoiners who say, this technology was not designed to have, the equivalent to smart contracts. It wasn't designed to have, tokens sitting on top of it. And then you have protocols like, Stacks with Clarity that are offering a chain that sits on top of Bitcoin, right? so that proof of transfer is their mechanism for consensus. But underlining it's all Rust code. So where I see, I mean, obviously April 2024 is Bitcoin halving. So I'm going to say something that's probably a bit, let's say, controversial, right?
Not a financial advice.
Like, it's not financial advice. Obviously, Bitcoin halving is going to do something to the market, right? And people, ask me, there's less Bitcoin. Oh, God, there's 21 million, right? But the thing that people don't often understand is that there are 9 decimal places after that 21 million. So, you only need 1 Bitcoin to suffice all of the transactions in the world for the next 3 billion years or something like that, right? So, you've got enough decimal places to cover everything. It's to infinity. So, many people don't understand this, right? And but people want to have one of everything. You want to have the decimal point in the other side, right? So, but anyway, look, I probably shouldn't say that. That's going to kill that's going to kill the market. I don't think so. But anyway, that's what a common misconception, I guess, from a technologist point of view, right? But it's going to be a big year for Bitcoin ETF. I think that's going to really unlock a huge amount of institutional funds into just being able to own crypto is complicated, right? Especially if you're a corporate entity, who's going to manage your keys? How do you have a release process? So I think there's also advances with account abstraction, which is really going to help. I mean, MetaMask has done a ton of stuff with account abstraction, and I've seen what they've done, and it is very promising. I mean, obviously it's already solved in Substrate with Origin. So you have an origin, and that can represent a collective. It can represent anyone you want, or it can represent a group of people. So you can have this sort of security model where you pass your keys around to various different people and you can recover your keys. And that's kind of like the big advantages of account abstraction, in the Ethereum world. So I think that will definitely unlock a lot of institutional funds to be able to tap into DeFi settlement, DeFi instruments, and drive the market up. So it's an exciting year, definitely.
Interesting. Tell us more about rollups. How does that function? I mean, if you have to explain it to, let's say, a 6-year-old kid, how does this function? What is this all about?
So rollups are a way of batching a group of transactions together, let's say, and having, let's say you've got a box with a key, okay, and inside that box you put a bunch of transactions, okay, and then you put the key on the blockchain, let's say Ethereum, right? So instead of having to have all of the transactions on the box registered one by one, let's say, you've just got the key which unlocks all of these transactions.
So it saves cost as well?
Yeah, so that's like you're rolling up these things. But looking more into like that world, I think what's interesting for me is moving away from miners. So this is kind of controversial. So what I mean by that is, you have proof of stake, you have proof of work, you have proof of my mum, right? Whatever. You have nodes, you have validators, etc. So if you look at something like Holochain, right, it removes the need for miners. Okay. So the actual, let's say, the consensus is built into the protocol of talking to each other. So I think, there's a lot of applications for IoT and other types of applications that are not based around an economy that could be really exciting to dive into, where you don't need rollups, essentially, because it's just infinitely scalable. It scales with the more users you have.
Interesting. And anything else? I mean, a lot of our viewers are people who are getting into Web3, crypto, blockchain for the first time.
Right.
Any advice from you as a seasoned entrepreneur? What are a few things which they should do, which they should not do?
Well, if you're getting into it for the first time, I'd say, start off with an exchange. Start off with something simple. Go to Kraken, go to Coinbase, go somewhere, get some crypto, then go to like Stellar Swap. Try and play around with your wallet. Get used to the idea of what's the difference between custodial, i.e., Coinbase or Kraken or someone owns it, versus non-custodial, where you've got it, let's say, in your MetaMask wallet, or you've got it in your Leather wallet, or whatever wallet that you've got. So I think the first step is to get a wallet, get some crypto, get it into your wallet, and then try and trade it. Change it from one crypto to another. Don't even try and trade or do anything with it. And then look at, I would say go to Livetree, get involved that way, because you don't need to have like any kind of experience, and you'll get a sort of TikTok style Patreon intro to it, which is like, in my view, the best. But obviously, I think everyone's start into decentralization, not necessarily crypto, but decentralization and blockchain should be thought of as like, how can this benefit my life? What is it going to be good for? Rather than just a speculative kind of trading positive. Not saying that that's not correct, but yeah.
Got it. Great, Ashley. Thank you very much for coming on Voice of Crypto and sharing your wisdom with us. And 2023 has been very exciting for you. Wish you all the best for 2024, and hope to see Livetree and Ashley reach new heights soon.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.